first people on the agenda because he's on vacation. I wanted to get him in and out, but I think he's in the wrong Zoom, so.
We got a couple.
We got time,
Okay.
yeah. So, all right, call the meeting to order. Mr. Brown, would you like to lead us in the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I need to approve the non-public and public meeting minutes from the April 17th, 2025 and April 22nd, 2025 minutes. Someone would like to move that.
I will move the non-public and public meeting minutes of April 17th, 2025 and April 22, 2025.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Sean, second by Scott. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda for 5/1/25, consisting of accounts payable manifest 4/24/25, accounts payable Harper's payment manifest 4/24/25, accounts payable payment manifest dated 4/29/25, payroll manifest dated 4/24/25, updated veterans credit application for review period for map lot 203-093, timber intent number 25-059-01-T for map lot 219-005, land use change tax for map lot 206-004 in the amount of $3,500, appointment of Karen Bemis to the Pemmy Path Subcommittee, appointment of Donna Hewitt to the zoning board alternate for a 3-year term.
Second.
Okay, motion by Don, second by Scott. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Do we,
Do you have Ben?
I just texted, he said he was on the public, but he's not.
All right, let's.
So I just texted him.
I'm gonna make a motion to seal the non-public minutes, the pre-meeting, the first non-public minutes of today's date indefinitely, as they may affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of this board.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Sean, second by Scott to seal the minutes of tonight's non-public session. All those in favor? Opposed? All right. So we're gonna bump up in the agenda here a second. Lake Water Quality Study Final Report. Who's presenting that? Come on up, sir. And if you could just introduce yourself for the folks at home.
Those who don't know me, I'm Dick Batchelder. I'm the chair of the Conservation Commission. And first I would like to thank Christina, the Land Use Department and stuff for their support in producing this report. And also to the select board who gave us the rope to do the report. So what we've come up with, and I hope you've had a chance to review it fairly well, is just some of the findings on this lake. It's more of a snapshot of where we are today at the lake. And we used data that was already readily available to us. So we didn't create any new data, but we used what was out there from the Newfoundland Lakes Region Association and other data. And the basic outcome was the lake is very healthy. We have a healthy lake. However, there is, as time goes on, the lake is going to have some changes. And we know this just from history has shown that lakes change. With many hours of discussion and lots of conversation, we definitely came up with many questions about the conditions around our lake today and where they're going to go in the future. And so our scope of the work was basically just to see what was here and see what we could find that might point in any direction of concern. And so the findings that we had were pretty standard in that There's many things that are going on right now around the lake that the select board has been involved in, and stuff, as far as recommendations that the study group had come up with. And so I'm going to jump mostly right to the recommendations that we have, so that if you have any questions that you can ask of me. And also there's a couple members of the study group, and I would ask the chair if they could possibly answer questions if need be.
Absolutely.
Okay. First off, the town, we've discovered that the town is definitely aware of some of the issues around the lake, and has already begun to do some of the work on some of our recommendations in regards to the wastewater management and stormwater management around the lake, in regards to the culvert sizes and ditching and stuff around in town. So that's a big concern, because our storms are now of the size that they're bringing a great deal of sediment and stuff into our lake, and the phosphorus that flows into the lake is mostly coming from that source and stuff. However, with the development and changes around the foot of the lake here, with homes being changed from seasonal to full year use, there's concern about the septic stuff, even though there's no direct evidence showing that septic waste is making its way into our lake. There's certainly something that can be addressed, and it's something that is difficult, because you can't just ask a homeowner, we look at your septic system. Is your septic system up to date? Is it in good order? And so I became aware of a organization in Lake Sunapee called the Lake Sunapee Protective Association, who have decided their approach to that issue around the lake is education, and to educate the people, not make it punitive and asking them for access to their septic systems or to see what is going on there, to let them know that a failing septic system, a failed system, is very costly, but you can keep up a septic system in that education. And believe it or not, their participation in that was about 90% around the lake. And they've been doing this for about 2.5 years now. And I actually passed this information on to the planning board and stuff, so they've been given that. Another one of the recommendations was any future projects that the town has around the lake, that the select board have the authority to appoint a commission or a group to oversee and make sure that the information that's being provided is true and factual, and kind of a citizen review of it, but it would be involving, similar to the Lake Study Group, it would be the Conservation Commission and citizenship being represented. And I know some of these recommendations have already been started. One of them was the low salt use around the water wells, the well area. And I know it now, there is a low salt use, but I'm not exactly sure what that means.
We don't either.
So, and it would be nice to see it all around our lake.
We've had a discussion about that on the town level, not only near the lake, but we're near the town's other, the town water system source areas, particularly in the Hall Road and Mock Brook Road area, where it says drinking water protection area, but what does that mean? So,
Yeah, Hemp Hill Road has the same sign.
yeah.
And stuff, so it's a concern. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It does affect the lake.
Yep.
There's no doubt and stuff. See some of the other, the other thing was to see that this report find its way into our master plan here, if it can be in there. I think there are many, many hours of conversations and discussions producing this report and stuff. And thank you for giving us the free rein to do so,
Yeah.
because it was
So I have a question
certain.
for you regarding phosphorus and particularly the use of fertilizer around the lake. Is it possible for the town to have an ordinance restricting the use of fertilizer within X amount of feet of the shoreline?
I would think they can. Other towns do.
I think they do.
I think we should double check on the state, I think we passed that 2 years ago on a state level, that there's a certain amount of phosphorus you can't use within quite a ways up the watershed, actually.
Yeah.
There's no money for enforcement, there's no money for inspectors, so.
Sure, yeah.
No,
It's a feel-good thing that
It's
people.
more like a recommendation.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, that's what all these are. And-
Oh, we could
but-
certainly advertise it and have it and educate regarding it.
Yeah, well, again, there's the education portion of it. I think that's what we have found is probably the best approach
Yeah.
for a lot of this, is to educate the public, educate the contractors.
We're lucky enough not to run the risk of some bodies of water in the state run with saying, blooms and all that, because we have so much movement in overturning the water, but still,
We could certainly consider doing that for our own shoreline, though.
yeah.
Mhm.
Although it's hard to tell, most of the phosphorus is, like, as Dick said, is coming out of tributaries. It's not from the streams themselves, which means they're getting it from somewhere.
Yeah,
It could be,
so it's coming from much further up the
Yeah.
watershed than
yeah.
just shoreline, yeah.
I mean, there is programs that the Newfoundland Lake Region Association is starting to do more near shore testing and stuff. So perhaps a way to kind of monitor that a little more closely and stuff. But some of this is too collaboration between other organizations that are around our lake and towns that surround the lake too. I mean, Bristol's at the end of the lake. A lot of stuff is coming, from other sources. I mean, it's coming down our way and stuff. But I mean, I think there could be zoning that would help us in, development and regulation in our area.
Yeah, I mean, certainly if there's things the Conservation Commission has to recommend, we'd love to hear from them, so.
Well, we tend to be more involved and vocal with this stuff as the
Good.
time goes on and stuff.
Okay. We'll certainly keep up the good work.
I have a couple of
Yeah, absolutely.
comments. One, thank you folks for the work on this program. It was a massive lift, and I know it took a long time, and you did a great job with it. Much appreciated. Secondly, I love the fact that the report and the work was done by not just the Conservation Commission, not just the Lakes Association, but really a group of organizations that don't always see eye to eye on everything, and I think it was a good collaboration. And I think that there are certain things like that the association can do, certain things that the town can do regarding moving forward on this. I would also, if you remember, we had folks in from Pikes Point, talking about their issues with contamination and sedimentation in the
Pops Cove.
Pops Cove, thank you. And, one of the things that brought up was some of the things that, there's several factors there, but again, it comes back to, correct ditches, correctly sized culverts, and the like, as a big contributor to that. And I would have that we talked with, just our last meeting, we talked with the Bristol road agent, and had that very long discussion about whatever we're going to do in the next several years. It's not going to be to hit a target of paving. It's going to be, we're going to fix this ditch line, we're going to correctly size these culverts on these roads that we are rebuilding. And so that this will help us in that. So I think it's all happening at a great time.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot, obviously a lot of concern. The other thing I really like about this report, we always, and you touched on it, you know, we always hear, well, this is happening or this is happening. You know, we know there are failing systems, we know that this is, you know, we've, especially at the foot of the lake, we've heard that over and over. And one thing that the report talks about is, everyone knows that, but no one can prove it. You know, there is no paper trail to indicate any, you know, anything, not to say that, you know, that there aren't situations. But unless we can document it, you know, can't really do anything about it, so.
Yeah. I think it's important that that's where the education comes in,
Yeah.
in a program where it allows people to come in and understand the seriousness and the need to make sure the systems are up to date and working properly.
And that it doesn't have to
But
be.
know that they have a system.
Right.
Some, they don't know.
Right, a lot of people buy and they're just not aware of what.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and a lot of that is not remotely malicious, because those people that do have the failing systems probably don't know about it, because would think if they do, it's their shoreline that's being affected first, and they'd wanna correct that.
Right. Well, so it's kind of interesting. So first of all, I was listening to all this, so thanks for kind of going through it all. I loved your comment on the master plan, because I do think there's a segment of and I knew it, every one of you guys must have chuckled a little when he said it, right? I do think there's a bunch of this that needs to go in there. The couple of things that I thought about were, in looking at it and listening to you, was, you know, you talked about the other organizations around the lake. And we know, we keep saying we're the recipients of how stuff sort of flows. How do we engage the other towns specifically, right? Like I think it's one thing to engage with the other organizations that have, you know, sort of specific charters like the NLRA, right? But I also think that the 4 municipalities that all have lakefront have a requirement to work together to try to figure that out. So I didn't know if you guys attempted to talk with anybody.
We haven't at this point. I mean, but we do know through the NLRA that some towns they're a bit resistant to doing stuff. So, I mean, it's an opportunity, I guess, if nothing else, to find a way to communicate and work with other towns.
I guess for us, do we think we can sponsor some sort of meeting where we either go to some other select board meetings or whatever, but like, I don't know, it's almost a very challenging effort. I was gonna say a couple of things, but it wouldn't be appropriate. But it's a challenging effort to have you guys put all this work into this and then expect 1 of 4 communities to really be the owners of how good or bad the lake is.
Yeah. Well, one thing that the NLRA has done, it does bring conservation commissions from all the towns together at their watershed workshops.
Yeah.
And that's the one time you see people from Alexandria, from Bridgewater, from Hebron, and from Bristol. So it's happening, but just it's not really active. Could be more. Could be.
I mean, at the end of the day, all 4 communities benefit from the lake.
Yes.
You know, so I don't think anybody would argue that we would, you know, are doing anything where we want a situation where we're not trying to figure out how to properly conserve. So that's why it's, you know, it's funny to me if folks really want to go, I don't want to participate. I don't know, it seems to me it's the lifeblood, particularly of all of the tourism industry that's around here, right? So regardless of the community, there is a tourism aspect to it. Which brings me to the other point that I wanted to ask, because we were talking before about short-term rentals. So when you talked earlier about, you know, it's all about education, and I do believe that that's absolutely true, right? And you talked about Sunapee, where Sunapee has that group, right? Like, so they're doing a bunch of the education. Sunapee has licensure for their short-term rentals. Part of the question I have for our folks, in particular the fire department and whatnot, like when we engage in that and we look at those properties, because those properties are basically businesses, do other communities have any kind of inspection on those rentals? Because you know, the challenge I have with that is if you've got, you know, group A, group B, you know, one group goes in for 1 week, there's an issue with the septic system, it sort of gets pumped, right?
if somebody lives there year-round, or even if it's their vacation home, then they don't rent it, then I completely agree with everybody. I feel like they're gonna be in a position to really wanna take care of it. When it's their rental property, you know, is the same incentive there, and, you know, is there something, any other communities, because there are several other communities that have lakefront, Sunapee being one of them, Meredith's another one, where they have a licensure for short-term rentals. Is there anything specific that they do to help safeguard that scenario, where they've got a lot of rental properties, and they're trying to make sure we're taking care of the farm? And that's just a question I have.
Yeah, it certainly would be a select board or planning board issue, you know, to come up with something. I think any places that has rentals, it's the owner who's ultimately responsible for that, not, you know, each individual thing. It's up to them.
Yeah,
But, I mean, I agree there should be some oversight of some sort. I don't know, but again, you know, you have to have.
yeah, all I'm saying is when you talk to Sunapee,
Yeah.
you know, because, you know,
Yeah,
is there anything that they did there? Because
Not that
I'm just
they-
trying to learn from, you know, because every community has sort of approached a little bit of that, the short-term rental piece differently.
Yeah.
You know, you look at our economy and tourism really being at the top of the heap from a
Yeah.
Bristol perspective.
It's interesting, John, because when I spoke with them at the workshop, there wasn't much mention about rentals and stuff. They were just in general saying that the participation was 90%.
That's, I mean, it's awesome, right? Like,
It's like-
education should be the foundation for all this, because most people are gonna look at that and go, yeah, of course we have to protect that. Like, that's something we enjoy. We can't enjoy it if it's not in great shape, right? Like, anyway, there you go, sorry.
That's okay.
If I could build on what Mr. Miller said a little bit, the renters, no, the rental owners, it's in their best interest to keep everything up to snuff as well. But you're right, do they watch their renters like a hawk?
Well, and the thing is they're not there, right?
Right.
Like when you go to your house, or I go to my house, and there's an issue, okay, well, we gotta figure out how to navigate.
No, normally we would fix it in a reasonable.
In a reasonable amount of time, and, you know, so I'm not to say that we don't need to make sure we have a proper controls in place, but like, that's not the scenario I'm sort of concerned about. I'm concerned of when you look at our rental window of tourism, it's a very compressed window. And in that compressed window, we tend to have just a significant influx of folks, right? Like, you know, it's sort of pretty easy to figure out, right? Like, so the scenario that I'm trying to sort through is what makes sense for us as we try to figure out what do we do with short-term rentals, what do we do with licensure, what are the requirements we need to have, what's reasonable for us to ask, you know, that's why I was
Yeah.
curious if they talked about it, right?
They didn't, but it certainly, I can reach out to them. I have their contact information.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
They'd be willing to come down and do workshops. They're very open about their
Yeah.
program and how successful it was.
Yes.
They did a webinar and they also
In
sent me
March.
the link to the webinar recording because I wasn't able to make the webinar, so I can share that out as well.
And I think they're doing them fairly regularly too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And stuff, so it's certainly something that we could tie into.
They may not even be thinking about this issue specifically, I'm not sure. They're all geared towards septic discharges and the health of the lake.
Yeah.
But that may be a whole different subject that they haven't really thought about.
Exactly,
Until you bring it up.
Okay. yes.
Okay.
Anyway, there you go, sorry.
Just Dick, if I might, a
Sure.
couple things. So I just wanted to touch base, do you all know Ken? You probably don't.
We've never met, I don't think.
Sorry, Ken Milliner, 15K Lane, Ken Lottie.
Appreciate you coming in.
He was on the committee as well. And
I
he's-
I thought that was.
He knows what he's talking about. Some kind of engineer. like this-
Gotta be careful with those guys.
So,
Yeah,
just to
engineers
follow
are
up what
painful.
John said, we did have a lot of friendly disagreement or conversation.
Why are you looking at me?
No, you, wasn't you, but we had a lot of different viewpoints and I think we hammered out something really good in the end.
Yeah.
I think that one of the recommendations that we're really concerned about is that something like what John's talking about, the select board, and this, this kind of comes back to what are we telling our committees, our commissions to do?
Yeah.
That, say, we wanna create a committee that's gonna research why there's aquatic vegetation in the lake now when there wasn't 20 years ago. Throw it to the Conservation Commission and say, run with this. And it's kinda like the state's Public Utilities Commission, when you have a big project go, that they have to, they set up a group to work on it.
Yeah.
And so that it doesn't fall on your plates, because you don't have time to do that.
Yeah, it comes back to, and it's, again, good use of the commission, I mean, to do that type of stuff.
It's certainly nothing that any of us are experts on, so that's why we rely on folks like yourself
Yeah.
and the others on the committee, and, you know, certainly pass on our appreciation to the others on the committee for all the time and effort you guys put into this. And Sean said it was a pretty big lift, so.
Yeah, it is.
I do have one quick question for you folks while you're here. I'm gonna go a little off script on the Conservation Commission. The spring. So I've personally run into this issue, but I've heard this from multiple people and seen it multiple times on social media and everything about, there's people coming up and filling hundreds of gallons. They're coming from out of town, out of other towns, and basically tying up that spring for long periods of time. So I was just gonna make a suggestion that maybe we put up some kind of courtesy sign that there's a minimum, like just say hypothetically, 10-gallon minimum, and then if you wanna fill 200 gallons, go ahead, but you gotta let the other people there cycle through and have a chance to, fill their 4 or 5 gallons that they wanna fill, and
Or
there's.
tell the 100-gallon people to go back at midnight.
Sure, exactly, you know. So I didn't know if that was something, I know I brought it up to Carol, I think maybe Sean before, but,
We did just talk about this last meeting, I think. right?
I was gonna say, we did bring it to the Conservation Commission.
yeah. I mean, it's nothing that you're gonna be able to enforce, but if there was a sign like, please be courteous of others and, only fill 10 gallons at a time and let others in line have a chance and.
It's a good idea, but I think what will happen is people that are filling those big things will ignore signage.
Oh, yeah, but at least it gives, people a right to speak up if there is,
Yeah.
if they are abusing.
No harm done in that, for sure.
Because part of the
Maybe that's
problem.
the first step.
Yeah,
Part of the problem is that, in my theory is that that spring is for Bristol residents and visitors of the town of Bristol. But I've spoken to people at that spring before that, oh yeah, I drive up here from Pelham and fill my 200 gallons of water. And it's like, that's not what it's
No.
for. Yeah,
it's not what it's for.
yeah. But, no, I just appreciate that. If you guys could look into that at least and maybe,
We will
yeah.
look further into it.
Excellent.
Sure.
Anything else while you folks are here?
No, I'd like to thank Carol for all the time he put in putting the report together. I mean, was a ton of work.
The leader of the band.
Well, he's gotta do something. Hell, we'll get rid of him.
Got nothing, and the state, got nothing on his plate.
Well, thank you folks for coming in, much appreciated.
Yeah, and thank you again.
Yeah.
And
So good to see you, Dick.
Yeah, good to see you.
Christina, so we're just good, it's a done deal, as far as you guys are.
I'll share it out on the website, but I think I can, here's a quick thought, because I'm trying to, I think it would be nice if you did a presentation for the planning board.
Yeah.
Because then, you just talked about having them incorporate some of it into the master plan.
That's a good point.
It might, so.
Very good point.
I'll get Donna to set you up for a planning board meeting, because then they can decide if they wanna add some of this into the land use chapter, or if it should be a standalone
I mean,
type of
Yeah.
chapter, so.
Absolutely. I think it's important to kind of work all together. It gets more done.
Times 4 towns.
But I will
Right.
post it, I'll get that posted, and
Yes.
then we'll have Donna reach out to schedule something.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we are on to fire department update. We have Chief LaRoche on via Zoom from sunny South Carolina.
Oh, boy. Oh, where is he in South Carolina?
He's not in South Carolina, is he?
Yeah.
Is he in Florida?
No, South Carolina.
Can you hear us, Ben?
I was in South
Yeah.
Ben, where are you?
5 years, 5 months ago.
Can you hear me good or no?
Yeah, we got you. Where are you?
Yeah, if I don't have my headphones, then I can't hear my phone for some reason, so I apologize if the quality's cruddy. I'm somewhere.
Good for you.
I might just be in my office, who knows?
Somewhere more warmer than here.
Nice, nice.
Yeah. Alright, so, I guess I had
Software.
partly hoped to have some more information ahead of this meeting, but I think it's still a good conversation to have. If we look back a couple of months ago, for those of you that were on the board at the time in the fall, I had discussed kind of my 2025 project list, and one of them was to get, looking at the replacement for car one. At the time, it was largely based on just making sure that we got the replacement and the replacement that we wanted in kind of a timely fashion, given what we've seen over the years in replacing vehicles and the availability of certain vehicles. And then certainly over the last couple months, it's been the kind of conversations coming out of Washington, and certainly nothing set in stone yet. But it certainly makes more sense to me to be on top of getting the car's replacement ordered sooner rather than later. In talking to some of the dealerships, there's no real set in stone. You know, they'll kind of give you the same opinion that you can get from some of the national articles, which is if tariffs go into effect, you're looking at somewhere between an 11 and 17% increase, even on domestic made cars, just based on the materials involved. But nobody really has a firm answer. They'll also give you the same thought, which is that even the upcoming model years are already seeing kind of, I guess, anticipatory, if that's a word, price increases, even though none of that is really affecting the market. So I guess the discussion is kind of, one, that I'm getting those numbers now. I kind of have the classic route that we've gone, which is, you know, on the state list, on the state bid list, acquire a vehicle off of that, and then go to one of the upfitting companies for a price. That right now is the only price I have, and it's around $81,000 total. It's probably ballpark 1 to 2. I don't have the lettering price back yet, but say $1,000 to $2,000 more for the graphics. So somewhere just below 85 on that route. And then we've also looked into the company that the PD's been using pretty successfully, which is kind of more of a one-stop shop where you acquire the vehicle with the state, you know, similar state bid pricing, although it's through Massachusetts state bid system, and then they do the upfit. They found that's been a little bit cheaper. I've just been dealing back and forth with emails on some particulars about the upfit, and hope to have that probably by the end of the week, if not early next week. So it starts with that, but it's my hope to probably come into the next meeting with a recommendation to purchase the replacement for car one. So I guess that's number one. Number two is it's my desire that we keep the current car one. There's a couple of reasons for that, not the least of which is, right, so since kind of the beginning of having a car and the beginning of the CIP process, we now have a deputy fire chief. And it's not that the deputy fire chief needs a vehicle, though that's pretty much the standard. It's just based on what his day-to-day routine is, and being able to have a vehicle that at a minimum is at the fire station that he can leave his equipment in, whether it's his fire prevention equipment, his firefighting equipment, and it doesn't need to be moved out of the utility every time that vehicle is needed for something else. The other part of it is as we go to the 3 on a shift, the hope and plan is that we'll run what you may have heard to as a tiered response. That tiered response would typically be an engine and an ambulance goes on med calls. I have a pretty big issue with that program. I think it's fine if you have a fully staffed engine. It makes sense to keep that truck staffed and everybody on it. But running $1 million engine that weighs between 30 and 60,000 pounds down the road to every medical call or every kind of inconsequential call in town doesn't make sense. It does make a lot of sense to run the third person that's still going to be around town in utility, which is just a Chevy Silverado pickup truck, to assist the crew on calls in the town of Bristol, so that if you need help lifting down a set of stairs, or you find you need an additional attendant in the back, then they're there. Nice thing is when that happens, if the utility is left at the parking lot of Chop and Save or, the high school or wherever it gets left, it's not a big deal. The pickup truck, it doesn't have any certain equipment on it versus now you gotta find somebody to bring the engine back, in a system like that. So, yeah, that covers that. And I guess I just wanted to still be able to be on the agenda to say that's something that I've taken a priority in looking at because it definitely needs to be replaced at the time, which is it's slated for next year, which was based on 10 years out from the model year, and it will be 10 years old this summer. And that, getting ahead of everything that's going on, or potentially going on. And again, even if nothing happens out of Washington, which I would find very hard to believe, we're already, from the dealer's mouths, you're already seeing some of these price increases that are either being blamed on tariffs and or anticipatory of the tariffs when, next year's model year, and that vehicle may not be produced until the fall. So, they don't know, and so they're gonna put the prices up, and like everything else, you won't see them go back down again. So it makes a lot of sense to me to replace the vehicle now, ahead of that, any of those issues, and that's why I'm here.
Questions?
What color do you want, Ben? Wow.
Red.
Green.
So I got a few.
Sure, go ahead, Joe.
So I guess the first question is, do we feel like it's covered in the current CIP plan? I know it's next year, but is there enough money in there? That's sort of step one, right? Because I'm assuming that's where it would come from, right? Like,
Okay. Ben, do you want to address that question?
I can, yeah. The plan, I believe, and Don can correct me if I'm wrong, the plan was to fund it out of the capital reserve account. Again, we know that that's kind of an issue as far as its funding level, but there's certainly enough to do that, and then enough to still have some balance toward the engine replacement, which is very quickly coming up.
all right. So,
Correct.
Okay, so that's good. I know you mentioned that it's normal operating practice if you have a deputy. My question is really then, it's not so much about because of the positions that we have, from a community size, other communities our size, do we have any examples of ones where they have that? Or when we say that that's a normal operating procedure, how big are those communities that have that resource?
So this goes back to how you want to interpret what a comparable town is or a comparable department. So I will say it's tough for me to look at communities that are whatever we want to call ourselves, mid-3000s-ish in population, because most mid-3000-ish population we've proven over time does not have the services that we have a need for in town, right? So that's the start of it. However, if you look at, those 6 or 7 towns and cities that we use, right, one being a small city of Franklin, as comparables as far as our salary adjustments, there's very similar departments, they're staffed in similar sizes, they do relatively equal number of calls and similar shifts and the like. Every one of those towns has a full-time deputy that has a car assigned to them. Now, I'm not saying that today that car is going to be assigned as a take-home vehicle. That is certainly coming down the road. But I would just include that every one of those towns has a deputy with a full-time, with a take-home vehicle assigned to them.
I mean, I guess I would like to see us when we do a request like this, because my gut just off the cuff, the request is definitely very reasonable, right? However, we're still expanding a service, which is expanding the insurance, and it's expanding the maintenance requirements. So yes, we have the vehicle and we have the funding available to buy the replacement, but all of those line items are gonna go up, and whatever we're using for comparisons, we should be able to document. So this goes back to some of the simple things we were saying before around really documenting our requirements and making sure that we have something that says, we're doing it this way and we need to be able to go, okay, this is what we're comparing ourselves to. anyways, this is my 2 cents.
So this is one of those things that somewhat proportionally expands, and Ben, you can correct me on anything I say wrong about this. But when we get into expanding our services to contract towns, i.e. adding another provider, and that came with, adding a reserve, keeping a reserve, not adding, but keeping a reserve ambulance.
Yeah.
Those costs are offset by increasing revenues collected from that service we're providing, not only from billing, patient billing, but also from the percentage of those expenses that are covered by the contracts to those towns. Ben, does that make sense?
Sure, I think so, yeah.
Okay. So this would be another one of those things that falls in, if we're, you're adding and obviously, like you said, there's gonna be costs involved, i.e. vehicle maintenance is a perfect example. So that is a part, and I'm correct in saying that vehicle maintenance is worked into that formula, correct, Ben?
Yes.
Yeah.
So then what's the percentage increase that we think a vehicle adds? Because it adds something to whatever the line item is. Right, like, so every vehicle,
So are you talking about what, like hypothetically, what would it cost to maintain an additional vehicle?
Yeah, so it's like.
An additional light vehicle like that, it's, a round figure is $1,000 a year.
Okay.
Yeah, and I say that just a little history, I was the one that maintained those vehicles for the fire department for, for a number of years,
Yeah.
so. So that's certainly on the lower end. Now, if we're talking about adding, we're purchasing a new engine and we're gonna keep the 30-year-old engine we have and we're gonna, keep that operable, then we're talking about, $7,000-8,000 a year.
So it seems to me that what we're saying is the addition of this, the potential addition of this vehicle into the fleet is really gonna be offset by ambulance calls, right? So it's really gonna be in that formula.
Yep.
Right, but we're doing 1-year agreements with the towns, right, that are around us. I mean, I guess, basically, at any point, we could say, it's just getting, like, if the towns fell off and they weren't renewing their agreements for whatever reason, because, when we talk about the ambulance service, I still have some concerns over what Ben was talking about a few weeks ago around the, all of the state legislation and really kind of hampering us, but then, it's gonna come back around to the contract prices anyway, so, I know that there's an offset there, but, all right, so we're basically saying that this is in addition to really the ambulatory services that.
So here's kind of the way I look at it, like Ben was saying, this isn't gonna be assigned as a take-home vehicle right away, probably headed that way down the road, but at the end of the day, I'd much rather keep a vehicle that we can maintain for a small, for a lesser amount of money than to say, have him come back a year from now and say, hey, we need that second vehicle, and it's gonna be another $80,000. So I think this is a smart way to keep that in the rotation and then, without having to incur another capital expense within the next, let's say, 5 years. Because either way, that's getting replaced.
Yeah, right.
So, and there's not gonna be, just given the way that, goes with, selling town-owned property, we're not gonna get a great return on a 10-year-old SUV.
Listen, there's no question about that. To me, it just becomes the conversation, and this is why I go back to the requirements piece around just making sure we understand what are we comparing ourselves to? So what's our baseline when we say, we're similar to other towns?
Yep.
Okay, so then what's our baseline? And then from that, it becomes okay, we're expanding this service and here's how the offset comes.
Yeah. So if you want to do that comparison for, just for conversation's sake, there's Plymouth, Tilton Northfield, Franklin, Belmont, Guilford. Those are all similar sized departments in call volume, population, and manpower. And all of those are in that same situation, and that's how all those departments operate. So, and some of those even more.
Yeah, I guess all I'm saying is if we're consistently using those, whether it's this or whether it's when we do the budget, because I know we talked about
Yeah.
this before, right? I would just like us to kind of go through the exercise. I mean, I'm happy to work
Yeah.
with whoever to kind of do that. So because, you know, you look at Plymouth, if I remember correctly, when I looked at Plymouth is, so we now, with the addition of the 4 that we just did because of the way we're doing the regional ambulatory, we now have 13 full-timers. I think Plymouth was 12. Like just in my head, I was just trying to like do the appropriate comparisons and then try to look at, to your point, sort of the call volume and the population. To me, the bigger piece is really probably population. You know, knowing that we swell to other things, but when we have a stated goal, like for the ambulatory service, that we're gonna be a regional provider and we have contracts with other towns, this is why I always come back to the requirements, like, okay, what are we saying we need? And actually documenting it so we could, you know, have that in writing so that, you know, somebody in 6 months goes back or 5 years from now, well, why did we do that? All right, well, we did it because this is who we were comparing ourselves to, this is how we intend to operate, and this is how we can move forward. So anyways, there you go.
Okay. Any other questions for the chief? Any questions for us?
No.
Okay.
Appreciate all the homework.
Yeah. And
As
what-
always.
So Chief LaRoche and I did have a discussion about this ahead of time, and one of my first questions was, all right, well, you know, we have the utility vehicle too, so how does that play into this? And you know, like he already brought up in the conversation about chasing the ambulance with the utility rather than chasing
With chasing the engine. No, he said, yeah, he brought
Yeah,
that up earlier.
so
right?
that's
listen,
a-
that makes a ton of sense to me too, because when you look at but again, that's, all I'm saying is it's a good conversation that is buried in our minutes,
Yep.
right?
So, and
And
that's,
by the way,
well, so to get to my point.
Yeah,
So what happens is currently when Deputy Heath is out doing inspections or whatever, he's taking that utility vehicle.
yeah.
So, and then if you have your 3 guys on shift and that call comes in, then they have to chase that ambulance with an engine because that vehicle's not there.
Yeah.
So whether it's a take-home vehicle or not.
Yep.
So it at least gives the ability to have that, even if it doesn't ever become a take-home vehicle, it at least puts that in the fleet and it's not tying up a piece of equipment. And then you can dedicate putting more equipment into that utility vehicle and making it more useful.
Yep.
So,
That makes perfect sense.
well, thank you for interrupting your vacation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no problem.
go play some golf.
I'll be ready for a couple weeks from now.
All right,
Have fun.
All right.
have a good one.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Okay. Yeah, just pass it back to me, that's all.
No, well, neither one of them participated in the consent agenda.
I did.
Yeah, you
He
did.
did.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that was all on me.
Sorry.
You want a chair, John?
I was just thinking to myself, don't pass it to John because I know he did.
Yeah.
John was listening.
So, well, and I'm totally joking, because somebody's gotta keep me in line, so, now that Les is gone. Mr. Regan, you have been patiently waiting,
Yeah,
and I told you I would try and get you home before the sun went down, because you rode your bike here, so.
It's okay, Bristol's not so busy, I think I can get home safely.
Luckily, that's a broader spectrum now. The sun doesn't go down for a while.
This is true, yeah.
Ride my bike.
All right, so let's talk about the budget schedule.
So as you guys know, the budget committee starts with so the two anchors, the starting point is when the select board budget version gets handed off to the committee, and the end point is the public hearing. So I don't know how much detail you want to go in this. Historically, at least for the couple of years I've been involved, you guys have made sure you finished your budget work so that your second meeting in October on the 3rd, Thursday, you're done, and then at the next Tuesday, somebody comes to we schedule a budget committee meeting and you come and give us that. So we're basically, we're still on Tuesday nights at 6 o'clock. The idea was to kind of do second and fourth, because the first Tuesday is already scheduled for the planning board, and we didn't really want to ask them to make major changes to their schedule. So it's been modified since then, but it basically assumes that you guys, and I'm asking you to confirm that you're willing to do that, it assumes that you will finish your work on the third Thursday in October, which I think is the 16th or the 17th. And then actually the third Tuesday is after that on the 22nd, and or 21st, I don't have it in front of me, 21st, we've tentatively schedule a meeting, and that would happen. You want me to keep going and talk about what's on the schedule, or I was looking for
So
some feedback?
let's get some feedback. John, any questions?
No. Just, I mean, you guys know the schedule better than I, clearly much better than I ever will right now.
Okay. Sean?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is, no matter, it seems like no matter what time or when we start, it's always a
Mad dash.
mad dash.
Marathon at the end.
And that's really, that's not a detrimental statement to anyone, it's just, it is what it is. If you give us 6 meetings to do it, we'll have a hard time doing it. If you give us 4 meetings to do it, we'll have a hard time doing it. But
Can I add something, Mr.
Yes.
Chair? So last year, your deadline for the department heads was September 20th. Obviously, those dates are a little off, but Friday, September 20th. And then you started working, your first work session was September 26th. So there is a week before this, on September 19th, you could start doing work, maybe not from other department heads, but give me an earlier deadline and do some of that work earlier. But that would mean you'd do 5 weeks in a row, I'm not sure, or 6 weeks in a row, I'm not sure you want to do that. So I just put those dates out. But if you want to if you stick to the deadlines that you had last year, you'd have to say, for this, it would be September.
Yeah, this draft schedule assumed
19th.
that it was the same as the last 2
Yeah.
years. We had 4 work sessions, so it'd be the last Thursday in September and the first 3 Thursdays in October. One of the things that I did is I moved up the deadlines for us to send out the notes to the non-municipal people, and the deadline to have them come back, so that you would have that back, that we would have that back on the 19th, which would then get it to Christine in time, if you guys start on the 25th, could get baked in there. I put those 4 dates of the last Thursday in September and the first 3 Thursdays in October in here. That's not something that, as long as we hit the end date of the 16th,
Yeah.
what you do doesn't matter, but I want to know what you're doing, because I want to include it in there, because I want myself and the other budget committee members to have the option to come here and listen to you guys interact with the department heads and make sure we see that information.
yeah, no, that's.
So this really follows the same schedule you did last year.
Don?
In the past, the select board has been late on giving their budget to the budget committee, which I think is a huge disservice to the budget committee. So whatever we have to do to get it done, to give it to them so they can start their work, I've always been in favor of.
Can I just clarify for the public, the past 2 years, we haven't been late, we did
No,
move the
it's-
deadline up?
In the past few years,
Yes.
as Paul has said, it
Yes.
hasn't been that way, and I've been very happy because it hasn't been that way. I've got longer history here than any of you, and, it drove me crazy the years that we were late,
Yeah.
10 years ago or whatever.
Well, that's why Scott and I talked to Christina about, instead of just assuming you were gonna hit that date, we asked for it to be put on the agenda so that we can come and talk and make sure that we're all aligned.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even at CIP on Tuesday, which I'm sorry you missed, but that's okay.
I
We
did
talked
tell-
about the schedule so that it better aligns rather than having us give it, in November.
I
So,
told them.
which
to.
doesn't do anybody any good because you've already had to make decisions. So, yeah, I'm all in favor for doing this.
Scott?
No comment.
So I have to listen to everybody, I may have just a couple of quick ones.
You don't want to hear what I have to say, so go ahead.
Well, no, so just, yeah, no. it's all-
No, I'm dead serious, go ahead.
Does it only have to be once a week when we make a look, or like if we're that much pressure, we're better off at least for a couple of weeks trying to do, because we have plenty of time to do notices.
It's not a matter of time, it's a matter of when.
And
So if this was up to me, I wouldn't be turning in a budget until the first of the year.
Yeah, yeah,
So, like I said, I'll just keep my mouth shut.
Well,
Well-
and it's staffing too, because you remember this room is booked for other meetings, and I also have to be in some of those meetings,
Right.
or someone else has to be in those meetings, so.
we have another room.
But I have to, I
Oh, no,
can't
you
be in
did-
two
you
places
did
at one time.
Yes, for sure.
It is, I hear
Sometimes.
you. It's
Not
frustrating
always.
that you spend 6 months of the year, you know, on the budget for the following year.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm gonna open my big fat mouth.
Go ahead.
Here's my, this is nothing against you or anyone on the budget committee. You guys do fantastic work, you're great people, and I appreciate everything you do. But now, having been in your shoes as the budget committee member, budget committee chair, and now, you know, being my third year on the board as a board member and as a chair, I want more time as a board member to work on the budget because I want to be able to do basically what we did last year and bring you a budget and say, here's what it is, you can make cuts, but if you make cuts, tell us what services you want cut along with it. And which was what we did last year, and I think you cut it by what?
We cut by a little bit, but not
It
significantly.
wasn't a lot at all, you know, and I heard grumblings of frustration, not from you, but of some budget committee members that there was nothing to cut, and we did our job, and we could do an even better job if we had more time. So like I said to John, it's not a matter of time, it's a matter of timing.
Yeah.
Can I chime in real quick?
Sure.
It's not the select board and the budget committee's job to cut the budget.
Right.
It's the job to make a correct budget.
Right.
So it just
Align
drives me
the
crazy.
services. Yeah.
It used to be that everybody said, oh, we have to cut, our job is to cut, our job is to cut. And now, well, there's nothing to cut, so why, our being here is meaningless. It's like, no, the budget committee being there, if you didn't make a lot of cuts, that just means that the select board did a good job at
Right,
presenting a
and
very nice budget.
that's what I'm.
But what you did correctly and what you have to do every year is oversight and make sure and look at it and say, does this look correct? And that's the important part of the budget.
I hear you saying
I
that.
just want that to be said.
I mean this as a compliment, I hope you take it this way. It did come up in one of our meetings that we felt like we were doing less work because, basically because you proposed a tighter budget, you put more effort into it and made cuts that in the past the select board didn't do, and then it went to the budget committee and then we did. So we got to feel good about ourselves because we were making cuts, and last year people on the budget committee commented that we feel like we're being less effective because there's less things to cut.
Right.
But we talked about the fact it's because you guys made the effort to make a tighter budget for us to start with.
See, that was my point. It's like, you shouldn't feel like you're not doing anything if you're not cutting. Because your job isn't to cut, your job is to, look, you're doing the same amount of work every year, whether you're cutting, adding, or just
It's just not
saying it's
satisfying.
okay. I know, it may not feel as good,
So
but you're still doing the same amount of extremely valuable work.
My
Whether you're cutting or not.
goal as a select board member is to, if we do our job correctly, then you don't have a job to do. Basically.
Their job is to make
Or
sure.
your job is redundant.
Well, yeah, and that's very important.
Yeah. And that's what I always said as a budget committee member, was that, and nothing, no offense to you guys that were on the board at those times, but
Yeah,
had the board done a better job on their budget,
Yep.
we wouldn't need to be here right now. You know?
well,
I would say the majority,
it's-
the majority of the changes that we made last year were not corrections on what the select board done. It had been either, oh, there was a mistake, this got left out, or in the 2 months since the select board worked on it, we got this additional information and something to be adjusted.
Adjustments in the process due to, a lot of times due to insurance or
Correct.
that sort of thing, which is
I don't-
information that we didn't have when we put forth our budget.
Yeah, but you being there to catch mistakes
Yes.
and corrections is extremely important. That's the point
So
that I make.
now that I've vented, I'm perfectly okay with this. So.
And I agreed with you to a point, but I don't agree that it's the selectman's job to present a budget that aligns with the budget committee.
Correct.
Not that, I'm not saying that aligns.
Yeah.
But like,
It gives
if
them nothing
we,
to do.
I believe it's our job to present a budget that we feel is necessary.
in the best interest of the town.
Exactly.
Aligned with
And
services, like we're
sometimes-
saying,
right.
these are the services that the town is going to provide. Boom, it costs X.
Sometimes that
Right.
aligns great with the budget committee, sometimes it doesn't.
But that said, it's also not the budget committee's job to be setting policy,
Correct.
which
Yes.
affects funding directly.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that's a discussion that we had a lot when I was on the board.
Yes,
On the budget
and
committee.
same here,
Yeah,
and which I learned the hard way sometimes. So.
yeah, yeah.
Christina,
So, you can start earlier, but you'd have to move, if you wanted to add another weekend, give yourself 5 weeks, you'd
I
have
know.
to move the deadline for the department.
like I said, it's not time, it's
Yeah.
timing.
So September,
No, go ahead.
September 19th would be the same as last year for a deadline for the department heads. Does that work for you?
I'd rather spend a day here on October 21st and then give them everything from there, because it happens every year. The more, the later the date goes, the more information rolls in that you have to set the budget with. So
The thing is, do the departments right now, I mean, they know what their run rates are right now. They know roughly what their staffing level is, right? The biggest expense is gonna be people.
Yeah.
Right, like, so,
Projects, depending on the department.
right, like, so, yeah, so there are project considerations, but I don't know, it feels to me like there's probably some things, I mean, the piece that keeps coming to mind for me is I know everybody gets, and I don't blame you for having that look, cause I'm the freaking new guy, and I get, I'm playing the new guy card, okay? But as the new guy with the questions around, like we were talking about earlier with the fire department, going, what are we comparing ourselves to? Why is this a reasonable request? Because that's really what it's coming down to. Why is it a reasonable request for Bristol to have XYZ service, or when it comes to personnel, since it's our largest budget item, who are we comparing ourselves to so that we know we're paying appropriately within whatever the range should be? Like, I'm not here to say I just want the range to be lower, that would be silly. I want Bristol to have the best people, I want them to have a great experience working here, because I think it's better for the town. That being said, generally, the way you get there is you do good comparisons. So I sort of worry when I look at that schedule, like in the back of my head, I'm thinking about all the questions I'm going to have for every one of the department heads. And in my own head, I'm trying to go, how do I get ahead of that as best we can, which is sort of where you're going, right? Because like, are there ways that we can just talk with folks around how we cobble some of that data together to streamline the process, which is sort of where you're going, Rob, right? Like, we've only got so many meetings in such a window.
Yeah, I mean, and that's my point, is doing it this way. I'd rather sit in a war room for 8 or 10 hours with the
Yeah.
5 of us and hammer this out, rather than
Yeah.
waste
Giddy
5
up.
nights on it. I mean, it literally is, it's a waste to spend that many nights on it.
Sean's gonna be
When
going,
we
I'm
don't
finding
have
a tall tree to climb.
So the question would be then, you guys don't function well after 4 or 5 hours though.
Not at 9 o'clock at night. Not at 9 o'clock at night.
That depends if
But I'm
there's a
saying,
libation involved.
Like, let's say we,
You really.
let's say we said we're doing a Saturday, or we're doing or we could all be here on Monday the whatever, and
Yeah.
we sat here and, banged it out.
We can do that. Do you want to meet with the department heads first on regular meeting nights and then you bang the rest
No,
of it out?
I'm talking the department heads come in,
So this is,
we are on schedule.
we used to bring them in on Saturdays and we said, we stopped doing that because we.
I'm
had
not
bring
saying
in-
on a Saturday.
Well,
necessarily.
Why don't we meet on Columbus Day?
No,
you gave your people time.
I won't
now.
even be here. You can meet, go ahead.
It's
Just an idea, you said a Monday or Saturday?
No, it's a holiday. It's Indigenous Peoples' Day.
No, it's coming, it's changing to Columbus Day.
Yeah, but you're paying
We're
people time
digressing.
and a half, or double time technically.
Yeah, you don't want to.
No, we're not bringing people in on a holiday.
Right.
Yes, we can bring people in on a
That's why
Monday
I-
because they're already here.
That's what he wanted to have on a holiday, I said, no, I'm not gonna be
So-
here.
So the second, just so you understand, the second Tuesday of November is the 11th, which is Veterans Day. So I scheduled on the first, I had it, and Christina said, people, town employees have that day as a vacation. You would have to bring us on a vacation day, so we moved it. We're not having
Nobody's
anything on
thought
that
over
day.
He worked really well with us. There was one on near the week of Christmas, and I'm like, I don't think you should do that.
Right.
So we made it, but
He'd be getting cold and
So,
stuff.
so I don't know if you guys wanna, I need, what I'm asking for you guys to commit is that you
We
will,
will commit to having the budget to you by that date.
the meeting on the
Yeah,
21st.
That's all
So
you
I
do.
was, so I was gonna say the 16th, but I don't really care if you do it on the 16th, Thursday the 16th, Friday the
Yep.
17th, as long as someone comes to the meeting on Tuesday the 21st with a select board approved
Right.
budget to hand off to
Yes,
us.
and we will keep you informed.
And you will keep me informed on what
What we
days you're
decide.
gonna do, so that we will.
The only adjustment to that is that would all, I mean, and I haven't even had a chance to make my point. No, I don't mean that in a negative way,
I'm
my
sure it was
thought-
me.
the way my thought process works. This would give department heads more time to work on their budgets as well, which I know the department heads get frustrated that they have to have so like with this, they'd have to have, it's basically you have to be by Thursdays, well, earlier than that, because Lindsay's gotta put all the,
Lindsay doesn't do it right now, but Friday the 19th, so.
okay, yeah, so Friday the 19th would be their deadline.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice if we could buy them a couple more weeks. So that way we can actually, on our meeting nights, we can conduct regular select board business.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a thought, I'm not, we can discuss this again as a board at a later time.
Well, we need to discuss.
Oh, we
it
may just end up just doing this.
later.
Right, right, right
This
now,
way
it's
it's
basically,
Yeah.
can we be done by the 21st for him?
Yes.
That's really the question.
Well,
We always are, it's just a matter
we
of
always,
how we
yeah,
get there.
we just always get it done by that.
I don't know how you
It's
guys
a
work. I
win.
didn't think you need, but I'm hearing you agree. I don't think you need to make a motion and take a vote.
No, we
You-
don't,
you
so I
told
would
me
say
that you agree.
we will get it, the
We'll have
plan
to.
will be to have it to you by the 21st, barring some extenuating circumstance that didn't allow us to have the information to get it to you, or some reason like that, or some kind of emergency comes up or something.
All right.
Yes, so that
It
will,
makes perfect sense.
so this is a good baseline here.
And what I would say to you, John, about your comment earlier is that, feel free, so that we can streamline the process when it comes to being in this room, you should feel free to go to the departments and ask those questions so that you have that beforehand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's the problem,
No.
here's the problem, you're talking about, you dropping by water and sewer, talking to Jeff about his budget?
Well, no, I wouldn't
No.
just drop by,
No,
right.
but, so I don't wanna discourage board members from going to departments and visiting departments and understanding their operations. But what I do wanna be careful of is, and this isn't just select board members, this would be applied to budget committee members too, because I've seen this happen in the past, not with any current board members, but with department heads getting tied up,
Oh,
dealing
yeah,
with
100%, like.
a
100
zillion questions.
Yeah.
You know, when they have, it's no different than Christina, when you have all 8 hours in a day to get your work done, and then 2 hours of it's taken up by me coming in and asking questions, that could be answered in a board meeting at a later time.
That's absolutely true, which is why I'm specifically talking about what are some of the questions I know I'm going to have, and I wanna make sure we agree, because again, I think, you know, if, this goes back to the first night we did the, what do they call it, the PAS?
Yep.
PAS, well, I actually remember the acronym. You know, when the first night we did the PAFs, and I was like, okay, well, we're giving this person a raise. And the general anecdote that I kept hearing beforehand was, you know, we're not necessarily as competitive to other towns, okay? That, we need to know what that is, because the fundamental problem that I have is, every time we add a body, you said this during election day, Paul, like, and I thought it was a really good comment, things that everybody needs to consider. Every time we add something, every time, whether it's the fire truck, because now we gotta wait to make sure the maintenance line is properly increased, or we're adding a person, if we have, I have no idea how many total people we have, let's just say we had 20 people, and 10 people were underpaid as compared to our peer towns, proper peers, whatever the propers are. We add an 11th, and the 11th is underpaid. Well, now, we're making the problem worse. Like, we're making it harder for the town to, be competitive, and we're making it really harder for it to catch up. So, I wanna make sure as we go through this, we have a full understanding, which is why I said HR needs to do some of this research. So we need to agree what we're gonna compare ourselves to.
I disagree with you.
Okay.
I do too.
Because I don't think it's on HR to do that research. That's what we have department heads for, to provide us with that information when they propose
Okay.
an increase to us. They propose an additional person. And not only is it on the department head to do that research, but it's also on us as board members to take it upon ourselves to look into those things too, when we have those individual questions. And I don't mean that, I'm not trying to be negative at all. So.
You're good. I could inundate you with a bunch of stuff that I've tried to look up. But again, that's why what I'm saying is from a department perspective, when we're saying, okay, we're giving raises or we got raises, the reason why I bring up HR is HR generally is in the middle of, helping with the, maintain the grades and sort of the generic pieces, okay?
Yep.
And generally when you have comparison, let's just say it's Franklin. I'm not saying Franklin's the best, let's just assume Franklin's a great comparison for us, right? If you have a job, the grade goes from $50,000 on the low end to $70,000 on the high end, right? It's gonna be a wider range. The department head will talk about their budget and what, where individuals are, but the reason why I go to HR is they're the ones sort of helping keep a macro view of things, sort of, right? Like, so it's not about Jeff's office manager and exactly where Jeff wants it. Jeff's office manager is a grade, whatever it is, 10, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But, so Jeff's talking that through, HR's going, yeah, grade 10s run from here to here. And we know we're competitive to Franklin. The competitive piece, I think, is really important because it
I
helps our
think
people.
what you're saying, I think, is occasionally the case, in that we may do some type of salary study, we may have an independent organization conduct a salary study, or it's possible we may ask HR to do that for us, but it's not going to be in the regular day-to-day of their.
But if everybody's commentary right now is, and this is again anecdotal, I don't have specifics around that. The anecdotes have been, we're underpaying.
Yeah.
No,
So
Not
that's
for every
no,
department.
because we just did a wage study 2 years ago. This is where I disagree with you.
awesome.
We did the wage
All
study
right,
2 years ago.
Hold that thought. Christina had a.
Well, we do have a policy in place that so many years we reevaluate our wage scale. And department heads actually are the ones who do that and do the comparison because they know where HR may not know what towns, like Ben brought up and said, it's not an apples, you didn't say those exact words, but it's not an apples to apples comparison, but they know what they're looking at. And when Ben comes in, he's got 7 towns he's looking at that he knows are very comparable to the town of Bristol. So we do have a policy in place to do that. HR in the policy is supposed to come to tell you what the CPI is, so you can
Yes.
decide whether you're going to adjust the wage scale as a whole or not.
Okay.
And that's something, and then the department heads are the ones that come in. Department heads also come in and tell you where, based on experience, where they feel that person should fall in the wage scale.
That is
So,
absolutely
yeah.
true, right? Like the department heads need to feel
All right,
empowered
so
to
Scott.
do that. Go ahead.
Yeah, so just to clarify, because I didn't like that you put out that we are not competitive. We have been competitive, and we don't want to fall behind and get non-competitive. So
That's
there's
awesome.
a difference. That's why we were doing we worked on the wages the past 2 years to give them COLA and steps, to stay competitive, to stay ahead of the curve, so that we're not coming down the road 3 years from now saying, man, we found behind the ball, now we gotta jump salary at 10% like we did 2 years ago.
So, listen,
So
I
that's
completely
like-
agree
no,
with you. I'm
that's-
trying to make sure that that's the position that we're in.
I just wanna make sure the public was aware of that, and I know you were.
All right, we've gone off on a tangent.
I just have can we make a work session sooner than later to discuss your budget schedule though? Because we have to give them a deadline, we have to tell them what you want, what you will support, if you are for wage scale adjustments, what you're looking for, maybe there's more questions that you want to agree
That
upon.
will be the time for that discussion, yes.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Paul. Anything else for us?
Just to let you know, so I just was gonna share with you real quick, I'll try to make it quick. We also sometimes have time constraints. So the last year, I actually looked up the RSA. Just wanna let you know, we can do the public meeting, we typically do the public meeting in the first week of February. Last year, we put it in the second week of February because we meet the state deadline, it gave us some time we needed. It worked great for the budget committee. It turned into a big pain in the backside for the people putting together the town report because the MS 737 wasn't signed till a week later. So we're going back to the first week in February in order to let Christina and Deb give them the support they need to do their job.
Thank you for accommodating that.
The other thing I was going to say is, I don't want to pick on Sean, but so last year, the select board rep on the budget committee was less, but, I mean, you didn't come to every meeting, but you came to a fair number of meetings. I mean, so Sean.
You had a lot of free time.
So Scott,
I was laying the ground,
that's right, you weren't on the select board last year when you made all those. I was gonna point out, so Scott is our representative, but anyone else, you're certainly welcome to come to any of the meetings if you're interested.
So just to clarify, we haven't set a complete schedule for our work sessions, but you can keep it on the radar, the weeks coming when, from between the deadline that we propose to you and when the department heads get us, any of those meeting times.
We'll post them.
Right, we'll have a final thing, but for them to plan ahead if they need to schedule that far ahead of time.
Right,
You know, when there, we're gonna, most likely, most nights we'll be working on it, so.
right. Okay.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you, Paul.
Thanks,
Have a
Paul.
safe ride home.
quick and easy discussion.
You know?
We're gonna spend $1,000 on what?
Yeah.
Okay, updated tan,
No.
no.
Skip.
No.
Town meeting minutes.
So, you do have to approve them, you have to, approve them, sign off on them, before we can post them.
Somebody
They're
will
done.
make a motion.
You should use your authority and say, no, we're gonna do the tan.
You said.
Don't let her bully you.
You should use your.
Don't let her bully you.
I ain't calling you a bully.
She's like, nope.
I'll make a motion.
It is, I
Maybe
may
approve the 2025 town meeting minutes. We'll move on here.
I don't sign them.
I'm gonna second it for the sake of moving on. Motion by Don, second by me to approve the 2025 town meeting minutes. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Probably two abstentions.
2 abstentions.
Oh, actually, that's
You
probably
weren't at
true.
the town meeting?
They
I
were
was
there,
at the
but
town
they can't
meeting.
sign.
I can't sign as selectman. I would, until
Yeah.
after the town
There's only
meeting.
3 of us.
Okay.
That's probably a good idea.
Yeah, all right, so we have, for the record, 3 in favor, 0 against, and 2 abstentions.
All right, the abstentions are John and Sean.
Just sign that, and I'll deal with it later. Yes, I might be sharper tonight mentally, but my eyes are watery, so I keep looking at this.
My head, yeah.
Updated tan and bond notes.
We talked with Franklin Savings Bank, and they thought it would be better if we still have the open tan, that goes to October. They thought it would be better if I had John and Sean fill out, I gave them the appointment paperwork, fill out those forms, and then have new requests for advance forms signed. We had talked about using the one we had, they felt it would be better if we updated them. So there's one request for advance for the tan, so in case we need that in the coming spring.
Just ridiculous.
And then there's a request for the van, because we are going to be starting that project. And we just,
Central Street? Oh my God.
so,
There's a request for what?
what?
So for the
request
record,
Bond anticipation. note.
it's bond
Oh.
anticipation note for the Central Street sewer project.
Oh, man, gotcha.
Yeah,
So the request for advances have to
Another
be,
acronym.
what?
Akron.
Another acronym,
Yeah.
Yeah.
another TLA.
Let's start with the first one. The tax anticipation note is a currently open note that we used to pay bills when we had to, because tax payments don't always come in at the time we need to pay some of our bills. So, yes, if we were on a fiscal year, it might be different.
No, I have a different question, go ahead.
So we have you fill out the request for advance, at this meeting, because if we have to wait 2 weeks and we're running really low on money for any reason, it can hurt us. So that's the reason we've had you sign them in advance, so.
Real quick question, the one that we have open now, you said the deadline was October.
October, so.
Okay, so does that mean that's the last date that we can take it out, or
We-
does
It
anything,
closes.
or anything taken out have to be paid off?
Yes, we'd have to close it and pay, so everything would have to be paid off.
Okay, that's what I thought, everything would have to be paid back by that.
Yeah.
We took off, okay.
I've emailed the town's attorney to find, to clarify if I have to go through that whole process with him again. With the revaluation, we may still need to have a TAN in the fall, because the tax bills will be late going out, because, we're doing the reval this year. And the reval doesn't usually, provide a final number until late, usually November.
So we're gonna barely see that in time to set the tax rate.
The reval? Yeah. The reval is going, well, we won't be able to set the tax rate until it's done. That's the
Right,
reason we
right.
need the TAN
Yeah.
again. So, and reval years are late. They, we knew that, we were alerted, that before. But it just depends on how many
September.
hearings they have to have and how many meetings they have to have with people, so.
So in September, we'll be putting a new application.
Oh, and then we'll be probably requesting for an extension on the MS1 as well, because we won't have.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
But
yes,
as far as the
September, yes.
Yep.
All right,
So
TAU report.
you have, you have to sign these, by the way, sorry, John and Sean, because, not the forms, but the other things, because you secure the notes.
So I need a couple of questions answered before I can sign those.
Okay, go ahead.
Good.
Well, no, I just want to make sure Rob's off before I start.
You're just moving us on, so you better
Oh,
ask.
good.
Oh,
I can't move on because we still have questions on that.
What's the interest rate that we pay for the $3.7 million that we're saying we needed?
So those are two different things. The 1.7
Yeah,
is the tax anticipation note, and when we sign that, the interest rate, and it's open, so the interest rate was, hang on a second. Oh, paperwork's here.
The TAN is like a line of credit.
no, I know,
I take it out, and however long you have it, it's.
I know what it is.
It was
So
5%.
I was gonna say
And that was the
4.7.
only
What is
one.
it?
But
5%.
So it's 5% annual.
You know,
Yeah.
when we, yes, we
Yeah.
draw, whenever we draw down, we pay interest on it, so.
And
do we know what we paid on interest on it so far this year?
There you go.
That was his next question.
Here's the deal, so when I went to NHMA training last week,
Oh, no, so now you
Yes.
know everything.
well, no, I don't know anything. Okay, but here's the deal, I had several conversations with a bunch of other communities, and the fiscal year thing came up.
Yeah.
Okay? And so, good thing, I think for us, NHMA has a PowerPoint that they're supposed to be getting out. They have a training session on how to get communities over to the fiscal year. Yes, there's an 18-month plan, but there were two communities, I have to go look at my notes, because I told Christina, I got like 3 pages of notes around different things where they were able to fairly seamlessly, through a planning process, go through how to, sort of how to get there, right? It involved the department heads really taking a look at when certain expenses were gonna hit. Like, it definitely required, after the budget cycle, like it was like a 3-year process. It was after the first budget cycle, then they went into some significant planning around trying to time the expenses that the department heads needed so we could get to the next year to then do the 18 months thing, right? So, it just seems silly to me, especially when we hear the number, because 5% on 1.7 million bucks.
Well, however much we take out. I mean,
True.
we take $500,000 out. It's just on what we use.
We took
Yeah,
out
yeah,
one
yeah,
million
sure.
You
$79,000.
have to remember, it's like a line of credit.
Yeah.
It's only what you take out and only for as long as you have it.
As long as you have it out,
Right.
yeah.
So we try not to use it, but we aren't going to have a choice again.
Well, no, right now, I can totally see why we don't have a choice.
If I had to guess at a number, I'd say it's somewhere around $10,000.
I think that's what it was, I'm almost there, sorry. I had to log in,
And that's just in my ridiculous math that I just tried to do in my head. That probably is wrong.
So, because we did keep it out for a few months and we paid it back all in one lump sum.
And then on the bond, like, so if we're doing projects and we're doing a ban, right, like, we should be building in that interest. Because I know,
It's in the budget.
right, so the ban is in there, but, you know, hopefully we don't
No,
drive a scenario where.
so the ban, only the interest is in the budget, because this, reason we have to have a bond anticipation note is because we chose to go with USDA funding for the water and sewer project. They don't pay you until your project's done. So we had to
So you need
have an
construction- you
interim
need a construction
financing.
Okay.
Anyways, I don't wanna pay
All right,
anybody.
Christina, we can get to that later.
Yeah, I'll tell you what it is later, but, so those, if you're comfortable, I need them filled out.
So the
and
three
then-
of you put your driver's license and your social security number?
They had to give, you had to give both, didn't you, last time? Oh, wait, I think I have them.
Really? Okay. We'll have,
Am I off the credit card?
We have the new credit cards, they're going to be activated today. I have to go move all of the charges and you will be off the credit card.
I own the sewer department, Sharon, so.
Yeah, you do, we made you the owner. Yes, they did have to. So my social security number's on the credit card too.
I'm gonna write under protest on the bottom.
Under duress.
You free staters.
Signed under duress.
You
Again.
free staters, I'll tell you.
Again, I just want to clarify, we are not going to apply for a TAN unless we have to, but we will let you know when the time comes. We think we may need at least 500,000, because where we sold the building, that's helped us. So the ban, though, we are going
Well, the
to
ban-
use
the-
once we start using
I
the
get it, if
project,
we're doing
so.
USDA and you gotta do it, I understand.
Yeah.
As long as it's accounted for in the project cost, that's the interest that we're paying, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was known because of,
Right?
So,
if I'm on the board and USDA ever offers us money again, it's gonna be no.
So for this year, for the TAN, we budgeted 18,000 because we weren't sure what we would need. We budgeted 18,000 interest, we've spent, I need to make sure. It says 13, but I think that they refunded something. And I just want to make sure that's applied. I'll send you a follow-up email. And then for the ban, we estimated, Dawn helped me estimate that one, and we haven't booked anything on the ban, but we estimated it based off of what we thought. Shut me up.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
If we estimated what we thought, if we took money, started taking money out, we didn't think we'd take it out and it would only be out for 6 months. So that's why we estimated a smaller number on the interest for the ban. The interest for the town was budgeted at 20,000, and we split the cost. Actually, that's the water, so we also put 20,000 in the town. We split that cost because it's a 50-50 on the project, so.
Okay. Tier report.
We're sure?
Only one thing on
I'll just touch base, I don't know if anybody, I sent you the TA info items only. If anybody has anything they want to bring up, otherwise I'll just move on. And then discussion items that were sent out to you, the Department of Revenue has set up a meeting for the 2025 reval. The assessor, the DRA rep, myself and Joanne will be attending, and they've also asked if one select board member could attend. We anticipate it's gonna be about an hour, and right now it's scheduled for May 29th at 9:30 a.m. Is there anybody who might be able to go?
I think I'm gonna be in Seattle.
What was,
If I'm
sorry,
around,
I missed
I'll
the,
make it work.
It's the Department of Revenue, May 29th at 9:30 a.m. It's for the revow.
yeah, what, May 21
May 29th?
That's gonna be
at
Thursday.
9:30?
Oh, let me check the
That's a
calendar. Tell you
Thursday.
I can do that.
Good.
I'll send you an invite.
Yeah.
Environmental assessment, I can't, I looked through my minutes, I thought I talked to the board about this, but I didn't see it in the minutes, I don't see it in my notes. I was supposed to ask you at the last select board meeting, Lakes Region Planning Commission may have funds to help aid the Temple Thompson Community Center in completing their environmental impact study on a property they are interested in. They would need the town to sign off, no cost to the town just needs to sign off on it with Lakes Region Planning Commission. If you agree, I will write a quick letter of support, for them.
Why would they need to do the environmental?
They have to on this property that they're interested in purchasing.
Who's saying that they have to?
It's probably because they're
I
getting
think
grants.
it's because of, I think it's DES that's saying that they, or maybe it's their fund, part of their funding. They had to on the project over here,
Okay.
and they had to do it after.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
technically, it's gotta have something to do with funding.
And what happens when,
If the town doesn't support it, then they just don't get money from LRPC.
no, I have no reason not to support it.
Okay.
I guess, what happens when they do find something?
They would have to remediate it. It might be
The
something
seller
like,
should have to
so,
remediate it, right?
yes,
That's a conversation.
that would be a conversation for them.
I know where you're
But
going.
like Brownsfields,
Yeah.
if that was found, then there's opportunities for people to get Brownsfield funding and grants.
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason for us not to support that. I'm just,
Okay.
I guess, frustrated by
Um,
the outside situation.
Yep.
Yeah.
Moving on.
So I do,
Rob's like, I'm moving quick right now.
Before we get,
I have
Pour out my mouth.
all right, additional items. We did set the mandatory training barbecue for July 25th. We're getting more information out in next week's department head meeting to staff. We'll be inviting all staff, the treasurer, the meeting manager, and the board. Anyone, do you have any, usually we don't invite everybody, so I just want to make sure before, these are the group we usually invite.
Yes, whatever it was last year.
Okay. And,
I won't cook the burgers this year.
What's the training on this year?
training topics were still being finalized. So-
Some of them were a little tartar.
So we started off, we were waiting for June 5th, June 4th, I think. Primex is supposed to be coming to our joint last meeting, and usually from that Primex meeting, they tell us what our biggest issue is. Our biggest issue last year was slip, trip, and fall, very expensive. So that we did a mandatory training with slip, trip, and fall. And then we also did the hybrid Alice shooter training. It really wasn't like you didn't go out and hide anywhere, but there was a presenter from the police department who did it for us. There's been discussion that our pest company would come in and do a training because pests seem to affect 4 or 5 of our departments potentially. And so I was gonna reach out to them and ask them, but again, it's up in the air right now, what we're gonna do. Joint Watch usually chimes in, department heads, and then we also come back to you and just.
I was gonna say, put it out to the department heads and see what their recommendations are.
Yeah,
What about IT and security in particular?
they get, their security training every month, but we could do something with IT and security, it just isn't gonna affect everybody.
Yeah, it's been a few
We're
years
trying to
since we did
get,
that.
so we could do something, we're trying to get something that mandatory that's gonna be for majority of the staff, but yes, IT and security could be a good one.
Something fun, John.
All right,
Okay, I
So
will
listen,
mention,
everybody, whether they use the computers here or not, if they use any kind of computer at home, they have a basic understanding, helps them.
select board items.
I'm not done yet.
You only have one item under discussion.
Yes, it's additional items, you gave me, there's other ones you added tonight. But one, community planners, Sean, I heard a rumor, or if I remember correctly, did you make the ones that the community garden uses?
I didn't make them, I
Oh.
bought them.
Okay, never mind. So there's been interest, we thought it would be a nice thing for the employees, if we did one or two here, out here. But we would offer it up to employees, first come, first serve, or do a raffle if people are interested, but have a little vegetable garden. Deb has already picked up seeds from the by the way, if you don't know that you can get seeds from the library,
Yeah.
you should go get them.
We're gonna have a vegetable garden?
No.
at the town office?
Seeds from the library?
Let the employees have a vegetable garden. So we did it once before. There were buckets in the front that went around the flagpole. But you can say no, it was just an idea, but,
I could see you letting the employees have a flower garden.
well, I'm bringing those
Well,
up.
just a garden, okay?
What do you think, what do you guys think?
If they want it, I don't.
And so we were gonna put it out and see if there was any interest, but we didn't wanna do that until I talked to the board. We did it before with the pots around, when Nick was here, we did vegetables around the flag stand, but I don't think that's where we should put them.
I don't think they do it anymore, but I can remember going to the Alexandria office, and yeah, there was, they had large vegetable gardens out. Of course, they had nice fields.
As
right
long
there.
as it doesn't affect the outside appearance of the building, you know?
So, or we find a different spot for it. But we could, so here's an idea, we could make it competitive, each department has their own garden.
All right.
And see which one yields the most produce at the end of the season,
luck, Rob.
and then they get a prize.
I was donating, I'm painting them this weekend. I was donating planters for the wall to put out, and I was gonna challenge people to plant their own pots.
I've had many traumatic experiences with my wife on.
All right, so
Garden.
as we can look, we can see if there's any interest first and then go from here. if
See
you're-
if there's any interest.
Okay. I just wanted to announce that our town clerk tax collector is retiring, Rama Simpson. She is technically out for some time here, and she will be back in on May 30th to close out things, clean out her office, and then swear in Cheryl Herbert, who's going to be the town clerk tax collector through the elections. June 7th, where there will be some type of open house for her, if anybody's interested in attending. So we'll get more information out, so.
Thank you to Rama for all of her years.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So go in with that, June 2nd, the auditors will be, so also the day Ram was here, she has to do an MS-61 to close out the office funds. And the auditors will be here on the 2nd to conduct the audit. They plan to turn it around in 1 to 2 days, and we should have a warrant to issue to Cheryl at our June 5th meeting, so. I'm out tomorrow, just wanted you to know, Deb's covering. Beach, Victor, Deb, and I are going to the beach next, May 7th, next Wednesday, after the department head meeting. We're gonna go check out, walk it and see what are some suitable locations potentially, and so we can look into what we can do for, access points.
Yeah.
And if you will notice, swim lines are out.
Yep.
I texted Rob and
And me.
it's Scott, I'm like, holy crap, I just saw.
Miracle
this.
weather.
And they look really nice.
They
They're
do,
nice
yeah.
bright ones.
Very
So-
nice. So that being said, that was gonna be my selectman one of them. Looked like the corner on the south side,
Oh, yeah.
came loose.
They were on the beach, so I don't know if he's.
I think you might need to make some
Which one?
adjustments.
Scott's saying you
Scott,
Scott's
which
thunder.
beach?
At
No,
Avery Krause south side or Cummings south side?
Avery Krause.
Okay.
Yeah, and one select board, I was gonna be about the swim lanes as well. On Cummins Beach, they're awfully close again to the next property that's supposed to be a launch area for non-powered boats, and there's about a foot, it looks like. Why
Yeah, they're
can't
supposed to
we,
be like a
why can we
3 or
not
4
keep that moved up about and have a 10-foot area there. It's not like the beach gets that crowded in the swim area.
It's only been a 4 foot, 5 foot, but do you want it to be bigger? Because he might not know where those lanes were.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, it should be,
It's 8 to 10 feet.
yeah, 8 to 10 feet there.
Because that way you can have
Right.
somebody come in and
For
go
launch
launch.
Did anybody notice at Avery Cross if they, what that one looked like? Because
No, I don't go down that way, unfortunately, but if,
Okay.
yeah, let's,
We'll check.
let's give,
Deb was gonna go out.
Have Deb
there,
check
so, Yeah.
Good we
yeah,
know. We have
let's give people, there's
Department.
a lot of people with paddle boards, kayaks
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Let's give them
We
some-
want to have a scenario where somebody can come in and go out at the same time, with a
Yeah.
paddleboard or a kayak.
Okay,
Part-time call at the fire department, we are announcing two new hires, Brian Reed and Micah Morris. Reserve EMS providers, we signed and approved their hiring as well. It's Eric Trinow, Aaron, and I'm so sorry if I butcher your name, Harry Bliven, Heidi Downing, and Marlinda Nadeau. And then we filled our firefighter full-time open position. It's been open for about a year. Jake Moran accepted the position. Short-term rentals will be here June 5th. We've scheduled that and, to come talk to the board, so. What?
who's coming?
Just Joanne, I
Okay.
think, I don't know if Ben will come,
Yeah,
but.
that's awesome.
Yeah,
Good. Okay.
we do need a non-public at the end again.
Select board items, Joe.
The biggest one is I had, there's two. One is our priorities, because we did that a couple of meetings ago, but we really haven't come back to that. We really need to try to figure that out. Trying to do some things from an EDC perspective. So right now, I've got, I know we need to reconstitute it, but we want to try to give some direction, right? So that's one thing, just generically. Bruce Dorner and I did meet with the folks building the Middle Mile Fiber Project for Grafton County. So I asked Bruce to try to get a hold of them and figure, okay, what's the story? Why, what's Bristol in that? Where's Hub 66 in that, right? What became very, very obvious was they basically said, hey, by the way, you in Bristol, you're already all connected, or you have all of the infrastructure to connect like the other communities. Because I kept saying, back to sort of like the theme, why are we different than everybody else?
Right.
Okay, now, the one way that we are different, that's really good for us, that it doesn't seem like Grafton County did, is the fact that when we wrote our grants, at the very least, our town operations, because we have strands dedicated to the town, in Grafton County, when they did the Middle Mile project, Grafton County didn't do any of that, okay? There was a request to lease some fibers back from us, which would, if that's the case, and there's a bunch of digging that needs to happen, but if that's the case, it could be a scenario where it at least helps us cover any maintenance costs that we have on the fiber cables that we contractually have with Hub 66, okay? Because in our contract, we have to pay Hub 66 to manage the fiber cables, right? Because of our usage, which is ultimately cheaper than doing some of the IT things that we used to do. So it's a good thing, but if we can offset that, I think that would be even better.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Sure.
The O&M, which must be the maintenance fee, that is ending soon. Does the contract cover and talk about anything after that?
Well, so here's the interesting thing. We had talked about having a attorney that is specialized in telecom reviews. I'm trying to find out what do we need to do to be able to go get that started, right? Because here's why that's incredibly important. If Hub 66 is selling to another entity, the other entity is going to use that contract verbatim with us. We have some opinions around, sort of where we stand with that. Hub 66, we need to finish transferring a bunch of ownership of cables to them because of the way it was originally written with us. There's a bunch of open items there. We need to act upon that, get that review going, because they're selling to somebody else. They're not slowing down, waiting for us to do anything. And I know we had talked about that before, but I'm not sure exactly what we need to do to execute that. But that's definitely something we need to do, because they're gonna, one of the pieces is, Bruce was thinking that based on the way the contract is written, because of our relationship with Hub 66 in that, we have a possibility of reviewing their sale to make sure that we don't end up with the short end of the stick somewhere. Okay? Again, if we don't do this, it's gonna be entirely on us that we didn't do this. And I'm sure our attorneys are great from a municipal perspective, but this is definitely a specialized telecommunications, and then it's gonna be a relationship with Grafton County and a whole bunch of other pieces, so. So I'm just kind of curious from everybody, like.
How do we pursue that?
We'd have to reach out and see if there's an attorney in the firm we're using, or go out to another one.
See if they have a recommendation.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, I mean, if they have a recommendation, that's awesome. I know that, you know,
Which is on my, I do have it on my list to reach out and talk to Sean Tangy and see.
Okay.
Sean Tangy was the one who handled all the original, and he's also the one who handles our appeals right now on some of the other telecom stuff. But, he might have somebody in the firm, like, we have a different attorney for the TN and the band, and we have an attorney for,
okay.
yeah, so.
We just want, yeah, so that we can do that. And then the other thing I want the board to know, so what I'd like to do is, I would like to meet with Andrea next and say, okay, hey, I just met with Grafton County. They're telling me we have these 4 spots in town that we should be able to connect to the middle mile project. Why wouldn't we do that? Like, and it seems to me, based on what the Grafton County folks said, which was really the contract is to Grafton County, but what they were saying was, it seems to be a choice for us. And if it's a choice for us, and the infrastructure's there, and it ultimately gives us an advantage where we have the potential to do some leasing, then we should definitely do that.
Why would we tie in to?
Why would we tie in?
Redundancy?
Not so much redundancy, it's gonna be more about how they're trying to manage all of Grafton County. And again, I think it puts Bristol in a different spot where we have the potential to try to utilize our infrastructure that we have.
Wouldn't that open up some areas that aren't already serviced?
No, so I think that this isn't about service, it's more about, when they do a middle mile project, it's about the interconnections between town A and town B. It's about aggregation of traffic and having
So
greater
how does-
capacity.
How does New Hampshire broadband tie into that?
New Hampshire Broad.
New Hampshire Broadband, I
Co-op.
think is co-op.
Oh, the co-op.
Yeah.
And that's just doing,
Yeah, so the co-op is, they just have a different coverage area, okay? So here's, the co-op's actually a good example. If you remember, they were before the select board, when I was still on the planning board, like maybe 3-4 months ago.
Yeah.
They were talking about construction of fibers they were gonna do.
They had to go through Bristol.
Right, they had to go through Bristol. All right, well, so there's an example where the fiber's being overbuilt, right? Like, we've got fibers on the same poles, or they've got fibers, right? The state hates that, okay? The middle mile project, and this is why we need to have another conversation with Hub 66 to sort of figure out, okay, what's the story? Right now, I think the plan would be to have to overbuild by us to get to the rest of Grafton County versus coming back to us, right, and having us participate in the whole thing. Now, in full transparency, I don't have enough information about the projects yet to be able to definitively say to you that's how it is. That's how it feels to me at the moment, based on what I know. So I want to go talk to Andrea next and say, okay, let's talk through the middle mile project. Where are you guys going? Because right now, they're going to be paid, and it's going to be their infrastructure for the middle mile in Grafton County.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope, so as long as you guys are good with that, I'm gonna ask Christina to go get Andrea, and we're gonna have a conversation.
I think we have a meeting scheduled for this.
Sure.
I was going to give kudos to whoever did the beach swim lines, so thank you.
It's a newfound dock and marine, or
Devin.
Yeah, I think that's.
Devin
it.
Cormier's
I have to.
business.
Yeah, they're on top of
I
it.
think it's
Much,
Newfound Dock and Marine.
much appreciated. And also thank you for Christina for getting that, or whoever, for getting that meeting on the beach access
Yep.
and the like.
Oh, we'll be in touch pretty soon on the other one, the road improvements.
Yep.
So,
Yep. I had one, I got contact from, and I'll reach out to Chuck and have a discussion with him and talk with him, but, I got a fairly animated text chain from a resident regarding an issue at the solid waste. Effectively, they went in with a mattress, which would have been $20, so they stripped it. And then they went back and were told, that, well, now you gotta pay $35 to get rid of the wood. Where it says, you know, no charge if you strip it, but it also says, and approved by attendant.
So I think I've
Yeah.
been privy to this
So,
conversation.
They said, well, I'll just put it in my car because it says no charge if you put it in a car, not a truck.
Did they explain it was a mattress? Because I think
Yeah, no, it was explained that it was a
Okay.
mattress.
what came to us, because Chuck was in my office, was that
Okay.
it was C&D. And that the person went and dumped their garbage, went over and dumped it and left without paying anyway. And I said, well, if that's true and they didn't listen to the attendant,
Yeah.
then you really should try and find out who it was and send them a message. However,
I know who it is and I wouldn't expect that.
no, so.
Yeah. So I'm just following through
Yeah, yeah.
because it was brought to my attention from a
Yes.
constituent, so I will follow through with him on that. But I do think, but it is, I mean, we're getting into the weeds, but it is sort of a, you know, it says, it would have been better if you paid the $20 to just dump it without stripping it.
Yeah.
And
And
so,
wasted his time.
yeah,
But
and
then if you put it in bags and threw it in the dumpster, nobody'd be the wiser.
exactly, and then you end up burning it, and you know,
Right.
most of it was regular wood, but some of it was plywood
Yeah.
that was in the mattress support, so, yeah.
Chuck is scheduled to come also on June 5th. We're going to talk about transfer station chain updates. I'm hoping that he has quotes for the
Yeah,
chain to repair the building, one, and two, about some proposed changes to the transfer station ordinance.
Yeah.
Before he makes more effort into it, I wanted him to make sure you guys
Okay.
supported it.
yeah, no, that's what I had, I'll follow up just to, with the
That almost
community.
sounds like something that should be training so that we're more consistent. That's all.
Yeah, and following up with communication,
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
yeah. That's what I have, thank you.
John?
Yeah, the swim lanes look great. I already said mine about the boat access, so I'm good.
Scott?
Just one thing, Christina, have we been in contact with LR PC regarding to like the phone recycling? They were supposed to come and talk to us.
We haven't rescheduled, no, not yet.
Styrofoam.
Yeah.
Can we just stay on top of that because there's grants usually available, he said, timing wise, it just.
We'll reach out and get him.
Anything else?
Sorry, he's been sharing a lot of stuff, so we can reach out and get him.
Okay. And then especially if Chuck's
That
coming
was two
in, then
things, sorry.
that's it for me.
My only thing I had was the spring, which I brought up with the Conservation Commission, just because I saw that popping up.
Just two more things.
You had your time.
No, I missed one, it's written there, but I missed it. We just got a change order for the water and sewer project, and normally they just do them, and I said, no, we really should put change orders through the select board. The good news in this change order, which is that it is contractor change it is contractor submitted change proposal to use alternative MCC supplier that reduces the delivery time from 56 to 64 weeks to 25 to 30 weeks, so they can get their stuff quicker. The contractor carried the cost for the MCC supplier Eaton in their bid. The total cost for the alternate MCC supplier Rockwell is approximately $25,000 more than what was carried in the original bid. But it goes down and says the engineers the proposal reduces, it increases by $26,583.90.
All students save.
But we did reduce it, I've never seen these change orders, and this just came through, so, it says so it starts with the original contract price is 2.9, which that was what our original contract price was. We decreased from previously approved change order, which was approved when we signed the contract, for, it decreased the budget by 200,000. The contract price then became 2.739, and this change order would bring it back up to 2.766. So it's still below the original number.
Yeah.
And it's because they had to change the vendor, or it was going to be a lot longer to get the material.
So it's still under budget.
It's still under the original
planned
budget,
budget.
yes, yeah.
But the ban was only 2 million.
Right, but some of the money is coming out of, we have 1,050,000 in.
Different pots.
No, I get it, all I'm just trying to make sure is that, like, okay, it's still under budget, that's great, but are there any other adjustments that need to be made sort of downstream? It doesn't seem like it, so that's good.
I have a bigger concern.
No. Yes, go ahead.
They've been making change orders all along.
Apparently,
Do they have that? They don't have that.
not on this project, on other projects. The comment that was made that they didn't have to go to, have you ever done a change order for water and sewer before?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yes, so I'm like, no, they should go to the board. So yes, this is, if you're okay with the $26,000 change,
Surprised
I
that
would
wouldn't
just
come
need
up
a-
in the audit.
what?
Surprised that wouldn't come up in the audit. Sorry, I won't. I'm gonna think, yeah. All right.
I would just need a motion to approve the change order. Somebody can look at the paper if they need to on my computer, because I thought I had brought it down, but my computer crashed and didn't print it, so. There should be a change order number, and then the dollar amount is there.
Well, dollar amount, but what,
Sorry, roll back up a little.
yeah, I'll let you drive.
So, this is change order number 2. And it's for this amount, $26,583.
Yeah, so it's going up by 26 grand.
Yes, yeah. They do their change orders totally different than we're used to, so.
Who's they?
Underwood Engineering.
Okay.
So it says change orders number 1 to number 2, so that's number 1, that's number 2. But no.
So this is a 2-year project, 500 days, well, under 2 years, like 18, 19 months. I don't know if anybody else needs to see it.
All right.
Because when a change order goes through, I guess I normally would get a lot more information
Yeah.
about the change itself, right? Not just hey, the number went up or the number went down. I mean,
Oh, she just went through the
no,
description.
no, I get it, but I'm just saying in the submittal that you sign off, doesn't
Is
like,
there-
we went, all we really went through a minute ago was more,
So
what are the,
There is-
you wanted us to
doing?
approve the previous one too?
That was signed with the contract, so no.
Okay.
If you go down here, John,
Yeah.
there is a little bit more right here. It just, I didn't have it for this meeting and I can't make them, I don't want to make them wait if we can agree till the 15th, so.
I guess that's exactly right.
Okay.
Description to Rockwell MCC, unit cost, okay, so they're having to buy something.
They have to buy everything now in preparation for this, and they're gonna start stockpiling stuff. You're gonna start
So
seeing.
the excavator that's down there has nothing to do with our project?
The excavator's down there is probably our project, because we're also getting ready to move a telephone pole
Okay.
that will go through this company, so. Also, I emailed you that there are the samples of what the color rocks will be. That's out there, down there too, so. In case you're interested.
Okay, so
All right.
what's a Rockwell MCC, any idea? Anybody know? Let's see.
Rockwell is the company.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically a
It's a
25,000.
voltage motor control center.
Okay, so they need an additional motor control center that they don't have in the plan, right?
No,
No,
we
they
have-
get it
It's
from
the same
somebody
one
else,
they
so they can
can.
get it sooner.
There
They're
is
getting
a,
it from Rockwell versus whoever else. they're getting it
Instead of
from.
being up to a year out, they'll be
Rather
up
than
to
being a year
6
out,
months.
it's gonna be half a year.
okay.
yeah, that's what I.
All right, and then there's a $1,200 markup on them buying the part for us.
Yeah.
So
It's an expedite fee.
so it's because they're expediting it, the cost is going up.
Correct.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve change order number 2 from Underwood Engineers for the Central Street Pump Station and force main improvements in the amount of an additional $26,583.90.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Sean, second by John. Any discussion?
Sorry.
All those in favor?
Sorry about that.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Um,
Christine, anything else?
The fireworks, I just wanted to touch base on them because we are not getting anywhere on the firework. We haven't been able to have a fireworks committee meeting. And we're not getting out to friends yet, friends of the fireworks kind of theme. I was hoping that, I have a thought, I was hoping that we could just solicit a smaller group of people, maybe from the events, Rob, somebody, and whoever else, take some of the department heads out because they already know exactly what's needed from them. They just have to guarantee that they'll be there. And then have meetings to get the event scheduled and whatever we're gonna put into the event, get it done. Like if we're gonna have entertainment or not.
Yeah.
I had done some stuff from the last meeting. I'm supposed to be gonna be taking myself out, but we're also starting to run lower on time. So I've initiated stuff with the company, and I've also reached out. There's a DJ, Tim Martin, who plays for Old Home Day. He's willing to play for the 4th of July if we're interested. A lot less money than a big band would be. I don't know if that's something, but I wanted to get us moving.
I don't think that's a bad idea. Save the town a little money.
Carol's not gonna be available this year.
No, he's not gonna be available for either, so when I reached out for Tim Martin, I asked him about the parade. I asked him about 3 things, because someone else is interested in music in the square, and they're gonna pay for it, so while I was contacting him, I did it all at once. He, and Les had suggested him, because we've dealt with him with Old Home Day.
I think he's a Newfound graduate too.
Yeah, I think he is. Sorry, I was gonna tell you what the cost was, but it's not coming up. We can move on while I look, but my thought is scale back the fireworks committee. Department heads don't wanna sit through it anymore. And just try and get, solicit other members if they're interested, and let's just get this plan. But
We just need to make our expectations to department heads known ahead of time.
yeah, and from July on, this committee needs to meet, because the only way you're gonna get a friends group is to start after this
Yeah.
group. So that was the only other thing I had, so I will.
Just one other quick item, I was approached by, one more item. I was approached by Francisco at Odisea, asking about who he talks to about ideas he has for the town. It was pretty vague, but it sounds like events and stuff, and I steered him towards the events committee and land use in case anything he had.
Pretty convenient given who his new neighbor is, so.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that is, I should just say go next door.
But I only bring it up as, another person in the community wanting to do fun and amazing things.
I will email Janice, because we're especially, they're gonna be doing a block party.
Yes.
Coming up. They're supposed to give me a flyer. It's gonna start from the Kelby. It's not just a block party for Bristol, but it's a block party running all the way down to the square. So it's gonna start at the Kelby and come all the way down into the square for different things.
They're not closing it off, it's more like a.
No, not closing it off.
Yeah, where's the
It's not
Kelby?
close enough for you.
The
Oh, that's the
Kelby-
hotel.
You're talking about in Plymouth?
Up by the
No.
Whippoorwill.
It's
No,
in,
Kelby's in
Bridgewater.
Bridgewater.
Used to be.
For Bridgewater Hebron, it's right in that line right there.
Yeah, that killed me.
Yeah,
Blue
they-
Moon or something?
You need to stop there, I've heard they
Yeah,
have a
previous
great
Blue,
coffee
Blue
shop.
Moon, before that was Whipple.
So Tim Martin, $75 an hour for all the events listed, so it might be a little bit more than Carol, I thought I read it wrong, so,
Okay.
but.
All right, motion to go into non-public.
Motion going to non-public under 91,
A, B, and C.
A, B, and C.
Second.
Motion by Sean, second by Scott to go to non-public. Your roll call vote. John,
Aye.
Scott, Sean,
Aye.
Don,
Aye.
Rob, Scott.
Aye.
We're in.